AP 120, Chapter 19, Topics Testes and Sperm Development. So, the male and female reproductive systems have structures with the purpose of producing and nurturing sex cells, and then transporting to the site of fertilization. Male sex cells are called sperm. Female sex cells are called oocytes. I know you wanted to say egg, but it's oocytes for female sex cells. All right, so male sex organs designed to transport sperm to eggs. That's most of it. But then we have the primary sex organs, which are the ones that produce the sperm and hormones. And this is, of course, the testes. So the testes produce sperm, produce hormones like testosterone. All the other structures are involved in transporting the sperm and providing supportive functions to the sperm. So the testes are ovoid structures suspended by a spermatic cord, which is made up of blood vessels, nerves, lymphatic vessels, muscle tissue, ductus deferens. And the testes are suspended in the scrotum. Scrotum, a skin-like muscular pouch hanging off of the trunk of the body. The scrotum includes the scrotum septum. This is a wall within the scrotum that separates it into two compartments, one for each testis. There's also muscles, as I mentioned, the dartus muscle, which is a smooth muscle tissue that is directly underneath the skin, and then the cremaster muscle, which is a skeletal muscle that is a part of the spermatic cord. And these muscles have an important job. They are to help regulate the distance of the testes from the trunk of the body. So the testes are located dangling off the trunk of the body in a vulnerable location to keep the testes 2 to 3 degrees below body temperature, which is the ideal temperature for sperm production. And so these muscles will contract or relax depending on the external temperature surrounding the scrotum and the testes. All right, the testes, when you look at them, they have, 250 lobules or so, and those little separate tiny compartments are filled with these coiled tubes called the seminiferous tubules. So the testes are jam-packed with these coiled seminiferous tubules. And the seminiferous tubules are lined with stratified epithelium, and also embedded within them are spermatogonia. These are sperm stem cells. So the structure of it is made by the stratified epithelium, and within that structure is spermatogonia, the sperm stem cells. So when do males start spermatogenesis? It's puberty. That's when males begin to produce sperm, and then they don't stop producing it until the day they die. So the original spermatogonia, those sperm stem cells, have 46 chromosomes. And they're going to need to divide to both replace the spermatogonia cell during the division and also to produce a primary spermatocyte that will go on to become 4 little sperms. Also, the epithelial cells are known as the sustenticular cells because they are going to support, nourish, and regulate the spermatogonia, as well as form the structure of the seminiferous tubules. So, spermatogonia divides. One of those cells from that division is the primary spermatocyte. It will enter meiosis in order to form haploid cells. So it will divide twice, once to form 2 secondary spermatocytes that now have 23 chromosomes. Why do they need 23? Well, when we fertilize an oocyte, we want to return to the number of 46, so you have to have the number of chromosomes in the sperm to make sure that happens. Then the secondary spermatocytes will divide, giving us 4 immature spermatids, and then the 4 immature spermatids will start to develop into immature sperm cells. So again, we start with 1 cell with 46 chromosomes. We end with 4 cells, each with 23 chromosomes. And As the divisions occur, the cells migrate through the wall of the seminiferous tubule so that the final sperm, immature sperm, are found in the space, the lumen of the seminiferous tubule. So spermatogonia divides, then we get meiosis, and then the spermatids develop into little immature sperms found in the lumen, the space of the seminiferous tubules. All right, there are other important structures in the testes. There's the blood-testis barrier. This is the barrier formed by the sustenticular cells that separates the where the sperm are within the seminiferous tubules from outside where you have the blood vessels. And this is to protect the sperm from the male immune response. Turns out the sperm are distinct genetically from the male cells. So if they were exposed to the male immune system, the male immune response would destroy them. So we have the blood-testis barrier to protect and isolate the sperm. Also found outside of this blood-testis barrier are interstitial cells. These interstitial cells produce testosterone, produce the hormone testosterone. They are outside of the barrier because that hormone needs to enter the bloodstream, and the blood vessels are outside of that barrier. So the sperm will then eventually leave the testes and go into the epididymis. Epididymis is also made up primarily of a large coiled tube, and the sperm will then be stored and mature within the epididymis. As you can see, coiled organ on the superior and posterior sides of the testis. The mature sperm has a head structure that includes the DNA, the chromosomes, as well as an enzymatic cap called the acrosome. The acrosome is needed to allow the sperm to penetrate and enter the oocyte or egg cell. There's the midpiece with lots of mitochondria that will provide energy for the flagellum, the tail of the sperm, which will beat and move the sperm, hopefully through the female reproductive tract. All right, again, as we know, the testes are made up of seminiferous tubules, and they carry the sperm to the epididymis, which is also filled with a coiled tube, which eventually becomes what's called the ductus deferens. The ductus deferens is a long tube that is going to be transporting the sperm out of the scrotum. So we have a lot of male accessory organs, all devoted to proper care and transport of the sperm. We have coming off of the epididymis, we have the ductus deferens, which will then enter through the abdominal wall, travel behind the urinary bladder, lead to the ejaculatory duct, which then leads to the urethra. And when ejaculation occurs, we also need secretions from the seminal vesicles, the prostate gland, and the bulbourethral glands, because the sperm need a fluid environment that will nourish and protect them. So epididymis, ductus deferens, ejaculatory ducts, and urethra are in transporting sperm. Seminal vesicles, prostate gland, and bulbourethral glands produce the fluid portion of the semen. Epididymis, again, a coiled tube that connects the testes to the ductus deferens. Epididymis is where sperm mature. Sperm mature within the epididymis. And it's worth noting the sperm are still inactive. Their flagella are not beating. Ductus deferens, continuation of the epididymis. It runs through the spermatic cord, which is found within the scrotum. Again, as I mentioned, spermatic cord has the ductus deferens, nerves, blood vessels, lymphatic vessels, and connective tissues. Again, the testes are alive. They need to be connected to the body. Ductus deferens goes up out of the scrotum over the front of the abdominal wall, passes through the inguinal canal into the pelvic cavity. Now the ductus deferens runs on its own over the top of the urinary bladder and ends in the posterior backside of the urinary bladder, where it is stored until needed. The movement of the sperm is caused by peristalsis, by muscular contractions. So again, the sperm are still inactive. And that is it for this part of the lecture.